Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic Friday Roundtable Show. It's a live broadcast which you can join at every Friday at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time on the WP-Tonic Facebook page. And you can even leave some comments. We've got a great panel. I've returned, as they say, for my vacation in Blighty, cups of teas and full English breakfasts. But John, my great former co-host, did a great job, and thank you so much, John. I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves, and we've got some great stories and articles about WordPress and the internet in general to discuss in this episode. I'm going to let Chris, Chris Bad, Chris to introduce himself.
I'm Chris Badgett from Lifter LMS, which is a WordPress tool for creating, selling, and protecting engaging online courses. I also have a podcast for course creators called LMS Cast, and I'm one of the organizers of this year's WordCamp Portland, Maine, which is on November 3rd.
So you become a bad boy, have you?
Yep, pretty much.
Oh, there you go. I've got Sally returning. Sally, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Sally Getch. My business is WP Fangirl, and I build custom Genesis sites for growing businesses and non-profits that want a site that actually does something for their business instead of just looking pretty. Also, I have the world's most needy cat.
Yeah, I'm just watching it. Yep, I'm fascinated. Spencer, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks. Spencer Foreman from WP Launchify, and we help business owners who are looking to launch or build a profitable WordPress membership site.
And John, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name's John Locke. My business is Lockdown Design and SEO. We help manufacturing and industrial firms with SEO.
Great, and I'm Jonathan Denwood, the founder of WP-Tonic. We help you with your learning management system or your membership dream. We will take all the strain of getting everything set up for you. Straight into the stories. It's happening, folks. It's the big event. It's the big fight. It's the big whatever. WordPress 5.0 slates for November 19th. 2018. The day of judgment has arrived, folks. What's going to happen? I'm going to let Spencer start off with this. What do you reckon, Spence?
This is like the Y2K thing. I feel very similar to it's around November and December 1999. I'm sitting around with a shovel in my backyard trying to dig a hole, get some cans and water stashed away. This in the WordPress world, I think it's going to be a big fart sound is what's going to happen. It's going to be because no reasonable person could do like November 9th. We've already covered this, or 19th. We've covered this. So personally, I've prepared my cans and stockpiles for anybody I know by putting in the plugin to block this thing from ever interfering with the workflow. And I'm just going to like tune it out until after the new year, and we'll see what happens. I will say that just to be fair, I went back and played again yesterday before the show with the Gutenberg, and it's okay, but it's painfully hard to use when you're used to using anything else in the entire universe. Like I found myself just like trying to drag something and I'm just like launching nothing. So I don't know who they're kidding, but I mean, this is like a crayon and a white piece of paper compared to Adobe Photoshop or something like that.
Yes. What do you reckon, John?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting decision to launch it right around Thanksgiving in the U.S. And you've seen some apologists online saying, yes, but no matter when you launch it, there's going to be a holiday. But let's face it, that most of the people that are using WordPress are in the U.S., and yes, it's global, but honestly, it's just so they can get it in before WordCamp US, and they can have like an Apple keynote moment. Look, Gutenberg, it's in the editor, it's in core. So it'll be interesting to see, because we'll see how many people are actually aware of Gutenberg And we'll see how the actual 95% of the people who aren't in the WordPress community and listening to podcasts and reading the Tavern actually respond to this. We'll find out real quick.
Yeah, but what do you reckon, Chris? What do you reckon?
I believe it's up to them, in their own leadership style to decide when to pull the Band-Aid off. And if November's the time, that's their decision. And I think we said on this show that I think almost unanimously, maybe not, we thought it wasn't going to happen this year at all, like no chance. But now it looks like it's happening. So we're about to come into contact with reality. So I'm just optimistic. I'm hoping for the best. I think the great thing is because there's been so much debate around all of this, there is an opportunity for people, like Spence was saying, to toggle things off, just keep using the classic editor. There's like an easy way. If you don't want to deal with it, you don't have to. If you want to lean in and start using it, you can. I do see WordPress as really a global thing. And some of the date concerns, it's up to people, what they celebrate or whatever. It's like having a baby. There's never a convenient time to have a baby. So I'm kind of like the time and the fact that it's around Thanksgiving or Christmas, it doesn't really bother me that much. I know as an entrepreneur.
Well, of course it doesn't bother you because you're the CEO. You're technical lead. He's in his basement, isn't he? How are you going to give him extra turkey for dealing with all this shit?
Well, we've already been dealing with it. We've been preparing for it. We've been getting in position to leverage the opportunity and leverage hooking into Gutenberg and all that stuff. So this conversation's been going on for a long time. And I will say, just as an entrepreneur, I remember many times, especially in my earlier days, where I'm working on Christmas Eve, I'm working on Thanksgiving. It's not something I would wish on the society or put on my team as an expectation. But I've been there where I just had to get it done. And it fell on me to do it. But I also empathize with the concerns of people who do have valid concerns around their team members who handle technical support, whether those are WordPress plugin companies or agencies.
Are you going to buy him some extra? Are you going to buy him some extra turkey?
I mean, all I'm saying
Hey,
is
he lives out in the wilds. He could shoot them some turkeys.
It should be worth it. I think at the end of the day, that's the big. We shall see. But if it's worth, yes, it's at that time of year.
I'll tell you one thing, Chris. If I was your technical partner, I expect a wacky big turkey and some booze as well. But there we go. I don't know what your relationship with Thomas is, but there we go. Sally, what do you reckon?
Well, I made a joke when I saw the news that it was a typo. It wasn't supposed to be November 19th, but November 2019. And a lot of people have liked that comment. It seems sudden and soon, and I sympathize particularly with the people who are worried about Black Friday and e-commerce, because that's a huge thing and not a time when you want your store to go down. And I think there are probably people who have Black Friday sales who have no idea what Thanksgiving is. They just know people buy stuff on that day. But overall, I'm really excited about Gutenberg. And I think, they've got a fallback date. I think that if they realize, this is just not working, they will postpone it, and there will be, some mild disappointment in some quarters and some relief in others. They've already set up a fallback date for January, which seems considerably more reasonable and like a better time to go ahead with it. And I'm sure that in terms of available features and stuff you can do and all of the cool stuff that's coming out and themes that are leveraging this and the 5,000 commits I've seen in the Genesis repo for adding Gutenberg compatibility to Genesis. There's going to be plenty to show at WordCamp US if Gutenberg isn't actually in core and 5.0 hasn't shipped.
Radio, I'm tempted to say something, but I'm not going to. God. Yeah.
You come back a changed man.
Oh, thanks a lot, Spencer. I'm ill. I'm a bit under the weather. I've got been fighting the disease since I've come back. On to the next one. What have we learned from Google? It's the 20th anniversary of Google.
Yeah, I can't tell whether what I think is that all or already.
Pardon? You lost me. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's like various anniversaries that come up, but it's sort of like, wow, is it already 20 years? Or, but also, is it only 20 years?
Why don't you ask Google?
Yes, Google seems like it's existed forever, and yet I can perfectly well remember using Alta Vista and some of those other search engines that predated it. But the article is interesting.
Excite.
Yes, in the way that it talks about, how Google's approach to content and data managing and determining importance and so on and so forth has really shaped the entire way that we build websites. And, I think I first heard about search engine optimization as a thing somewhere in the early to mid 2000s. And, back in the days when you could still have a text in the background color to, put keywords in and meta keyword tags were still a thing. So it's interesting to reflect on that. In addition to the more recent creepier things about, Google is following you everywhere. And, when my husband and I are in the grocery store, his phone is like saying, hey, looks like you're in Trader Joe's. Want to, take a picture or write a review?
I'm sorry, Sally. Chris put something into Slack and it totally threw me. I think he suggested there's actually some poor souls actually listening to this podcast. I don't know. I totally apologise. This is totally down to Chris's fault. What do you reckon, Chris? What do you reckon about this 20-year Google? It's just really interesting. It seems to have gone so quick, and they're total dominance on almost every aspect of the web it just kind of put it into focus.
So I heard a interview with Mark Cuban, the entrepreneur, a while ago, and I remember I took to heart one thing he said once about, somebody was asking him why are you a billionaire or whatever? How'd you become a billionaire? And he said one word. He said ubiquity, and that word has always stuck with me. Like, if you see a smartphone in every home, you see trash bags in every home, you see laptops in a lot of homes. Google is just totally ubiquitous. And so that's just interesting just from a scale perspective. And I don't think we really understand. I heard Jason Cohen at WP Engine one time say, it's really hard for any person to grasp how big the internet is. And, he was talking about that and deciding to go after, managed WordPress hosting and how big WordPress is, as a big piece of that. So I find that interesting. Also, the fact that, certain brands get dominance when they turn into a verb. Like, I'm going to go Xerox that, or I need to get a Kleenex, but there's all these different brands. And Google,
it sucks for your trademark protection, but it is.
That's a great point.
It's a big indicator.
Yes.
Yeah. You've really won when you've done that. I don't think anybody's ever going to say, I'm going to go Lifter that or something like that. So I think I lost my chance to get a verb. But anyways, I just find it interesting where with Google on the journey, I find the transition from PageRank to knowledge rank really fascinating. And ideally, if Google's mission is to organize the world's information, which is kind of what the human brain does, to organize and make sense of what's going on around us.
Do you reckon so?
Ultimately, the Google is getting closer and closer. The merging of infotech and biotech.
What about Trump supporters, though?
There's a lot of different ways of interpreting and types of information.
Yeah.
But I do think we're in an important point in time, just as infotech and biotech are getting closer and the machines are getting smarter. And for example, I was listening to a podcast the other day about some guy who does paid YouTube ads and how his algorithms are now doing better than any employees he could ever hire to optimize ads. So this is just the beginning of a new era where there's just a lot of disruption powered by data and intelligent AI.
Yeah, it always fascinates me. You got all these people saying, "Oh, everybody's going to be replaced," but the problem is, if nobody earns any money, they can't buy the frigging stuff anyway. So it's a bit of a self-destructive prophecy, really, isn't it?
Well, universal basic income is a
yeah.
thing. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation we can have.
Yeah, I apologise to my listeners and viewers. That's totally down. I'm going to strictly keep to the topics, actually. Spencer, what do you reckon?
I'm going to pull a couple things out in the same territory of what Chris just covered, but I want to throw in your universal income part, not to say that that's the political goal of anything, but rather there's a phrase I love that it's an old phrase that says, like, to somebody with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I remember sitting around in my PJs in 1997 or 99 or whatever this number is, that when it was Alta Vista, Excite, and Flash websites hadn't been invented, and I was in real estate, and even like that stuff was not really quite fully online. Google changed everybody's ability to think about where to pour their stuff, and that verb, which I love, really is true. Certain businesses who acted in that way at a certain time could leverage I became this thing, right? Like, I'm now known by a verb by somebody typing it in Google. My feeling is that where we're going to change is not that Google itself is going to continue forever, but rather it's the issue in the article about the accumulation of data. When we no longer have screens in front of us and we're no longer typing things, but rather we're interacting with a voice in our refrigerator or our car or in our head, and it says, what's the best something, or how do I go here or there? The problem is we lose that in human ability to actually decide for ourselves. And now we've become sort of the victim of whatever the device we're connected to is telling us is the best thing. And that's where somebody gets to decide what nail our hammers are going to hit, right? And I don't know if we'll have choice for that, and I don't know whether or not we'll have a
I think
brand.
what you're saying is Amazon's an evil empire.
I'm not saying it has to be nefarious, but I think that this does bring up the issue in the article, which is, who's the master of our choice? Who is the one that decides what we should see? So Gabriel Weinberg at DuckDuckGo has proven that there's an alternative to Google. It's like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the market, but it's a multi-million-dollar company now for people whose priority is not to submit to this particular system. I, for one, just total disclosure, I have no problems with Google knowing everything about my life because I live my life in the web like everybody's going to see it anyway. But there are people who don't want that choice. Anyway, to the point. What I've learned in 20 years is, and Sally made a reference, which I'm 52 this year. As I get older, every day is a smaller fraction of my life. So I sometimes go through 2 months and can't remember if that happened yesterday or like 5 seconds ago. I think it's a 10-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old has a greater proportion of every day to their life. So when I think of how fast this happens, I'm blown away because I know I'm going to blink my eyes and we're not going to have keyboards. We're not going to have screens. We're just going to be all doing some kind of Harrison Ford movie existence. And all of this data that's being collected is going to be important. But I just can't tell you whether or not it's going to be like happy or dystopian. It really has a lot to do with the choices we make today, including in the political realm. And that, to wrap it up, that whole idea of minimal economy. All the choices that are happening today are about what in 1999 was the way to make money. Now, as we're in 2019 or soon to be 2019, I think a lot of people are saying, look, if I can't adapt and come up with a new skill set that is not an AI robot competing skill set, if I'm not a 52-year-old who can learn how to do some skill that's needed by the systems that are in place today, it's a harder life than if I can. So I think we're going to have to address that politically and sociologically. Like, what is it that people who aren't capable of adapting can do with themselves? And are we going to support them? Are we going to give them some way to sustain themselves? Because the factories and the lifting jobs I saw yesterday, and I'll be done. There was a robot in Japan that, looks like a human, that was lifting up drywall, putting it up on a wall, and screw gunning it into place, which was traditionally a job required a kind of skilled laborer to do. We're going to replace a lot of manual labor stuff, but we won't ever change what people want to do from a people standpoint. You still ultimately have some reason why. I mean, why do I need to be verbed or Googled? It's because I'm doing something with a human-to-human interaction, not just necessarily mechanical. Okay, sorry, I had a little coffee before. That was a long answer.
That was fine. What do you reckon, John? What do you reckon?
No, Spencer and Chris made some great points as far as that. The economy is changing, and a lot of it is informational and technology and AI based. Robots are going to they are replacing a lot of the jobs that existed 40 or 50 years ago. And so I think there needs to be retraining and just like kind of a cold look in the mirror of a lot of places where, the jobs that you had 50 years ago are not going to exist anymore, not in your region, not anywhere in the world. So some places are doing retraining like that, whether it's teaching coal miners how to do solar jobs or teaching them how to, program, whatever it is. There needs to be an adaptation. So tying it back into this article, one of the things that it mentioned is Facebook, Amazon, all these other organizations that use entities as a means of connecting the dots, like consumer behavior. Whether that's you or me, they analyze how we're connected to other things in the world. They owe a lot of that to Google because they were kind of a pioneer in that. And that's the way like most of these technology companies are at this point. But the way that this article closed out is they were talking about the congressional hearings of how data was manipulated in recent news, like here over in the UK, different places. I do think that there needs to be some sort of regulation at some point. And I think at some point it might be forced on these companies because it's a lot of data and a lot of information to be held on to with no one, saying, how you can use it, whether it's for good or for evil. Now, Google says don't be evil, but at the same time, they're agreeing to go and work in China, censoring out certain results because they want to get that money. And that definitely sounds like it's a little bit evil to me. I think the big reason why a lot of these tech giants have not been regulated up to this point is that's a lot of the economic growth and GDP growth is in the tech sector. But I think at some point there's going to be some regulation on that. But I do think it's fascinating how data is being collected by all these entities and all these tech giants, and basically they can profile you and anybody else, and just how far AI is advancing because of that. So,
yeah, I think there's so many. I think you touched, all three of you have touched kind of a theme through our discussions in the past 6 months. I was listening to a podcast from Sam Harris. It's episode 138, The Edge of Humanity, and I'm going to butcher his guest's name. Yuval Noah Harari, I think that's how he's written a number of books. I probably totally destroyed this guy's name, but he's a futurist. But it was a great discussion. I think the main thing I get from what you've just said, John, is that, in Britain, the Industrial Revolution, you had a lot of people that were craftspeople, and their craft was kind of semi-destroyed, their living, because machinery could do things a lot cheaper, and they were forced into factories, and their actual independence and their actual wealth was reduced, but then you had a growing middle class who owned the factories or supervised the workers. And we could be going through a similar phase now. What some people seems to be suggesting is that it's going to even be greater, where what Spencer was hinting, that you re-skilled. What in this episode of Sam Harris's episode seems to suggest is you won't have that opportunity, is that artificial intelligence. It's not just manual work. It's a whole area that almost 80% of the population will be replaced. So I don't know how that will work out. What do you reckon, Sally?
Well, I've heard a lot about the AI stuff recently, and I think, yes, there will be people who are put out of work and who have to find a different thing to do, but there are also a lot of people who are finding it allows them to be more productive in the work that they're doing, because they can let the machine take care of repetitive, tedious stuff. And face it, all of us have talked about, marketing automation and setting things up so where if it's a task that needs to be repeated frequently, you want to automate it. And this is a kind of more sophisticated way of doing that. And so I think for some people, you're going to end up with a job where you get to focus more of your time on more interesting things and you can do more. And for other people, it's going to mean you have to learn new skills or you're going to be out of a job. And this is what's happened with manufacturing in the US, that almost all of it is actually now done by robots and not people on assembly lines.
Well, is it really, Sally? Really, isn't the truth is that some of it is, but almost the bulk of it was just transferred to China.
Well, a lot of it was moved to China, but there's actually more manufacturing done in America now than there was in the 70s. It's just, it does not involve as many humans.
Right. Yep, I'm going to go for a break, and I apologise because I think I've moved this off topic as I do, but I think it touched a lot of interesting stuff. So we're going to go for a break, but before we go for a break, I'm going to talk about one of my sponsors, and that's Kinster Hosting. And Kinster, what can I say about them? I host the WP-Tonic website on them, and I've been totally happy. I think they're much better value and a much better than WP Engine. That's my personal opinion. They're big enough to have all the technology, but small enough to care. I wish they would use that tag phrase. I think it's quite good, actually. And what do they offer? They literally offer everything. Staging site, all the latest versions of PHP. You can select what version. If you're looking for a quality host for your clients' websites, go to Kinster. If you're looking for a quality hosting provider for your own membership website or what e-commerce, go to Kinster, have a look at their plans. We're going to go for our break, folks. We'll be back in a few moments. We're coming back. I've resisted on jumping the shark completely. I've kept some control of myself. On to the next story. WP Simple Pay joining Sandhills Development. And I thought to myself, what the fuck is Sandhills Development? And I realised it's old.
You didn't know?
I've been a bit of a fog this week dealing with all the stuff that I didn't do through my holiday. Chris, what you thought this was a good story? What did you like about it?
I know Phil Dirksen from WP Simple Pay, and I know Pippin from Sandhills Development. I always like seeing great people that I respect with great products getting together to innovate together. I just think it's a good move. Also, Phil Dirksen has sold WordPress product businesses before that he started. He's a very interesting and smart guy who has that kind of rare blend of marketing and development and business building chops kind of all wrapped up into one person, which is cool. I've been impressed at how big WP Simple Pay has gotten. I don't have it's a freemium model. I don't know the exact download count on the free version, but it's a great product. And if we look at the maturation of the WordPress ecosystem, it's only natural for a company like Pippin's, which has the flagship product, Easy Digital Downloads, to acquire another e-commerce player in the space in the same way that Awesomotive, Syed Balki's company, with WP Forms recently acquired another form product. It's the exact same thing in a maturing ecosystem, and I'm just happy to see two great products and two great founders and their teams get together.
What do you think Pippin decided to buy it? What does he get for buying it?
Strategically, I think a lot of, like, if you just look at what's the vanilla strategy, usually it's a user acquisition strategy. So, I mean, Pirate Forms that Syed just acquired had 300,000 active installs of the form plugin. The free WP Forms has, I think, almost 1 million. So, like, in one acquisition, Syed was able to increase his market share by 30% or whatever. So that's just the plain strategy. I'm sure there's a lot more to it, but it's that's just the basic strategy there.
Well, knowing Pippin, he may write a nice long blog post about it, because he's done a lot of that, about the progress of his business.
He's very transparent. Yeah, he'll that's a good point.
He's probably
Sally.
typing as we speak. What do you reckon, Spencer?
I mean, this is a no-brainer. We're all hypothesizing Pippin's motives, but it seems really clear. The big competitor.
Well, it might be clear for you. You're brighter than me.
Well, I'm gonna illuminate it from my brain out. The big competitor is WooCommerce. That's it. Enough said. It's WooCommerce and Easy Digital Downloads. Then there was all the rest, including SimplePay. I don't know SimplePay's motives, but the next person up the ecosystem makes more sense to partner with, become part of, I suppose, be acquired. Now you're competing at a greater strength when all the Davids get together to fight the Goliath. Ta-da. And it's good for everybody, because we don't really need that much fragmentation. I think that's another symptom of the maturation of the WordPress economy. Some of the people here and I have had conversations about collaborating, and you know that we work with other ones like WP Fusion. It really makes sense for a lot of the smaller players, the agencies, the service providers, the coders, to find somebody with whom you can have a symbiosis. And this has been true from day one. So I think it's smart, it makes sense, and it's good for everybody. There's no drama associated with it either, which is nice.
No drama. God, WordPress, no drama. Oh my God, fathers. What do you reckon, John?
Pippin continues to simply and humbly and strategically be one of the best businessmen, business people in the WordPress economy. And I think this is a great move, as Chris and Spencer both pointed out. I think it's a good move for SimplePay to join one of the giants. I think Sandhills, they get another team member who's already built a successful plugin, and plus they get another person who can add to their developmental team. I think it's a great move. So.
Yeah, he looks younger. It's probably because I look more haggard and haggard. That's probably, isn't it? But he does look. He always. When I first met him, I thought this geezer looks like 12. I just don't get it. But he seems to do more in a day that I managed to achieve in 6 months. So I just don't get it. But there we go. On to the next story. Oh God, you got poor old. They're not poor. I keep saying that. I should have any sympathy for these cockroaches at all, should I? 50 million Facebook user accounts hacked. Oh dear. Who are going to start off with this? What do you reckon, Sally?
Well, we were on a plane when this happened, and I try not to use Facebook at all, although I do have an account. But my husband is on Facebook or Messenger or both, like, continually. So there we are on the plane, with the Southwest Wi-Fi, and Stefan keeps getting booted out of Facebook, and he's wondering, like, what the heck is going on? I don't know. And it was like the next day after we got back that we realized that Facebook had kicked everybody out because they were being forced to reset their passwords and all of this. And it's like, well, yes, just in case you thought Facebook might be trustworthy. I mean, you know, they did. I got messages saying, hey, you need to update your Facebook profiles. And my password program said, hey, you need to update your Facebook password, which is, you know, great for me. But, you know, I happen to have stored Facebook passwords for a couple of my clients. And it's like, well, I'm not going to go and change them and have my client locked out. They're going to have to do that. So, I mean, you know, these things do happen pretty much everywhere. But Facebook is, you know, it's kind of another indicator of why we should be wary of Facebook.
I'll tell you the aspect of this story that kind of focused my interest is that these things do happen. You can run a real tight ship, but when you're dealing with this amount of data, but the thing that really kind of piqued my interest was when you're setting up your Facebook account, and you don't want to give them your telephone number, but then if you set up two-factor authentication on their system, you obviously got to put a phone number in. And what they were doing was when you did that, they were still sending the phone number to their avatar. Anybody that would give them money, they were just sending it. And I thought, that really is the sign of the cockroaches that you are. And I make money from Facebook, and I set up. I've kind of WordPress and Facebook. That's the two main areas where I make money, really. But I've got no delusions. But I thought that is really a cockroachy kind of symptom, really. What do you reckon, Spencer?
You know, I just decided to save a lot of time. So on my website now, I just typed all my passwords out for all social media. I just leave them out there. So it just saves a step. I mean, why fight the inevitable? Just they're all giving out your passwords anyway. So I took down my adult film star information, and I took down all the things that'll get me arrested by the FBI, and I just said, here's all the passwords. Have fun. Let me know. Maybe they can manage my social profiles better than I can. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, but they know if seemingly that by getting that data, they can influence every aspect of your personality and life, can't they, Spencer? They can make you
again, from what I've been told, might be an improvement over how I've been doing with my personality so far. So, yourself included.
All right, throw me into it. What do you reckon, Chris?
I have a little just different comment about the whole thing. So when I looked at it and I was thinking about what if my Facebook account got compromised? I have, 4,000 person Facebook group. I have ads running. I don't do a lot of Facebook personal stuff, but I do use it for business. How hard would it be for me to recover my account? And so in that investigation through Googling and checking out the Facebook site and everything, there's really no way to get in touch with Facebook.
Actually, if you need some help, I actually got a phone number for an actual human being in Facebook. So if you ever need any help.
Well, you probably had to go to great lengths to get that. And it's just not easy to find. And I think that days are numbered for companies like Facebook, Google, YouTube, PayPal, whoever it is, it's really hard to get a hold of when there's a problem. Even if they have a free service, they're making money. They need to have customer support, especially around security issues and identity theft issues. So I think all these companies need to just take that more seriously and have a user first, some empathy there when it comes to what it's like to be on the receiving end of identity theft and seeing somebody traipsing around the internet doing damage with your account, which luckily hasn't happened to me, but I think all tech companies need to take that issue very seriously, and especially the big ones.
I thought that was a great point because it really is painful to, they do their best to avoid. They should give you some idea of their attitude, really. They make it as hard as possible for their users to get hold of them in any shape or form. What more do you need to know, really? What do you reckon, John?
Yeah, see, the thing that's not good about this Facebook breach, 50 million user accounts, yeah, I mean, and who knows if that's even the real number. So you should probably change your password. But this also affects other apps that you might have logged into Facebook with as well. That's not good. I don't know that Facebook continues to be the dominant social network 5 years from now. I just, so much stuff about Facebook is just not good. And stuff, yeah, just stuff like
I'll tell you a little story. I've been on vacation and I've been using a lot of wireless networks that I don't normally use.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one was in Heathrow, and afterwards I get this email sent to me by this Russian, wherever. He said, "I know your password. And we know that you've been to these porn sites." And
one of my clients got that email.
We're going to make your life terrible. Going to
Yeah.
send it to your wife and girlfriend. And I was so tempted. I thought, should I encourage this bad behavior? And there's no point in sending this email to law enforcement because they will not be able to blah, blah, blah.
Yes, the hilarious part about it was that my client who got this is a sex therapist. So I don't think actually she would be in the least concerned about somebody saying she'd been to porn sites. But I did explain that, yes, she should change all of her passwords. And she's like, all of them? I'm like, yes, it's time to start using a password management program that can generate like real passwords, because most of hers are like, please hack me.
Yeah, he was saying, and I thought, should I reply to this in my English sarcasm? And I thought, in the end, I thought I shouldn't encourage it. But I was so tempted to say to him, yeah, I like women. So what? I like women, and I like going out with them, and I like, what's terrible about it? But therefore, so why waste your breath? There you go, on to next.
No, from what I've heard, if you reply to stuff like that, then they just spread your email around to other scammers.
Yeah, it confirms that your email is real, and so you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You mustn't encourage this bad behaviour. I just feel sorry for the poor people that actually answer it, don't you? There we go. On to the next one. Do you need to know React as a WordPress developer? And I've gone blank. I thought it was a good article from a good source. What do you reckon, Sally?
I read this, and it was encouraging to me because my JavaScript is terrible, never mind React. And what it basically says is, well, there are certain things that you are, yes, going to have to know React for. If you want to do more advanced stuff, you will have to know it. But for a lot of things, no, you don't have to know it, or you only have to learn, a few of the functions that WordPress has, created wrappers for. And frankly, that's basically the way I learned PHP. I learned a few WordPress functions, and then I realized that, some of these actually relied on actual PHP and went through that. And, that's probably the way I'm going to end up learning React, because I do not have the time and attention to sit down and really just dig into it.
You mean you ain't got the time to sit down for a 25-hour plus course on React?
I'm afraid not. I hardly have time to sit down and do the work my clients pay me for.
Oh God, shock horror! But it was from Josh Pollock. He's been on the show. He's a great lad. I've got a lot of time for Josh, and he laughs at my English jokes. So he's a good lad, isn't he? So Spencer, what did you think of this?
This is a revisiting of a topic we covered a couple shows ago, which was...
Yeah, I can't promise you originality being part of this panel.
No, it's fine. It's all good. I like it. Pick what hat you want to wear. The article's fine, and the resources are good. I finally realized what happened to Zach Gordon, who I used to love from Team Treehouse, and then he disappeared. He was so unique, and now he does his own thing, it looks like. But I wondered what happened to him, why he left Team Treehouse, totally on another issue.
I think they stopped doing WordPress.
I can tell you why.
You want to go and visit the WP-Tonic and look at our episode where we interviewed him to find out information.
I want to know from John what happened to him. But my point is very simply this. Pick a hat If you want to sell WordPress as a service to your clients, learn enough to be dangerous and don't learn React. If you want to be a developer and you want to go deeper, learn React. Ta-da. I would like to know from John what happened to Zach Gordon as an anchor.
Yeah, so and like I said, I've met Ryan in early days in Treehouse, and I met Zach at San Francisco 2014. The reason why is because they cut the WordPress program completely out of Treehouse. Their shift became to selling, like web development courses and things like that to countries and, large enterprises, basically creating a pipeline of workers who were qualified to do different web development, and WordPress just wasn't on the agenda. So that's what, it wasn't just Zach. It was, I think there might've been, he was like the lead WordPress guy. There was some other people that were also doing some of the WordPress courses there, but just the whole program got cut around that time. So.
Oh, thank you. It's good news because there's another guy, I can't think of him now because I'm having a brain moment, but there's a guy who reminds me of Zach's uniqueness who has a plugin, and he did a song like 5 years ago with this plugin. He wrote and starred in his own. Are
you thinking of Gravity View?
Gravity View, right?
Yeah.
And it's haunting him to this day. I haven't met him in person, but the song is still stuck in my head. And whenever I would watch Zach's videos, I was just fascinated to watch him because he's such a unique character in a great way, like memorable character. So thank you for the update.
There we go. Got any thoughts? I'm interrupting Chris typing. Have you got any thoughts, Chris, about this one?
I don't. I'm not a developer, and I don't really get into the languages and the philosophy around them. I use WordPress to solve business and education problems.
Thank you. There's a couple of things before we wrap this show up, folks, is that I want to do a bit of blatant self-promoting there. I just recently had a great interview with Peter Rogers, the founder of Engadget, the real digital royalty, as I say, digital royalty. It's on the website now. I would suggest you go and listen to it, folks. It was a great interview. And he will be joining us on the panel in October, hopefully. So that should be interesting. One of the brightest guys I've interviewed in a long time, actually, capable of talking sense almost about any subject. Another thing I would like to bring to the listeners and viewers, I've been listening to a great podcast from the BBC, and it's about tracking down Nazis, which is quite interesting. It's called the rat lane or something. I'll put it in the show notes, folks. And I suggest if you're interested in history and a really fantastic podcast, you go and listen to it because I'm fascinated. It's got this English barrister that is a human rights barrister, and he's tracking down the history of one particular very sophisticated, highly educated Nazi that managed to butcher over 1 million people, men, women, and children in the most. What is so chilling about it is he's got his letters. He's got a whole selection of letters to his wife, and they're talking about the most benign things in these letters to his 2 children and his wife. And in the same things, well, yesterday I had 100 Polish people executed, and in the same breath as they're talking about their garden.
That's right. Yes, I put a little weed killer on the lawn.
I put a little weed killer. We butchered 100 people, innocent people, the day before, and I'm just sending another 50,000 poor souls to some godforsaken concentration camp to be butchered. The banality of evil is quite breathtaking, actually. That happy note, I thought I would end this podcast, but I thought you might be interested, listeners. So I'm going to let the panel tell you how you can find more about them. Sally, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
I am at Sally Getch on Twitter, And you can find me at WPFangirl.com, and you can find the East Bay WordPress Meetup at eastbaywp.com.
And Chris, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to? And Thomas, he doesn't see the day of light, does he?
He does. You can find us at lifterlms.com. We also have a Slack community. If you click on the Slack icon at the bottom of the site, that's how you can interact with Thomas. And we're also both going to be at WordCamp Portland, Maine on November 3rd. We're sponsoring the event. Thomas is going to be there at the table getting some sun. So check me out on LMS Cast, my podcast, and everybody here on the roundtable has been a guest on that show. So you can find out more there at LMS Cast.
That's great. And Spencer, how can people find out more about you and your thoughts?
Google me. No. WPLaunchify.com if you have any questions about building a membership site on WordPress.
There we go. And John, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
You can find out more about me at my website, which is lockdownseo.com. And I'm going to pimp something too. You can go to my YouTube channel, just go on YouTube and just Google #LockdownSEO. There's a video I want you to check out. It's breaking down exactly how we do SEO audits here. It's 24 minutes of goodness. I think it's fascinating. A lot of people don't talk about, what they actually do or what they look for. So this is just step one of that. And
send us the link and with a short description. I'll make sure it's in the show notes. And the same with you, Chris. If you've got a spare moment, send us details, a little blurb about the WordPress I can't even talk. And link, and I'll make sure it's in the show notes. Sorry, okay. Spencer's really cracking himself up because I started. He's such a mean bugger to me.
Your brain is still on the right side of the road instead of driving on the right side of the road.
For 24 hours to get back to the US. Your brain would be frazzled. We're going to wrap it up now, folks. It's been a great show, great panel. I really enjoy the Fridays round panel shows. And we'll see you next week where hopefully we'll have another round of great topics and a great discussion. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.